Today we will be covering one of the greatest attacking players in all of chess, the great Mikhail Tal. Let's get right into it. My name is David. You can also call me the Quad Rat. Let's get it. Alright, in the first game we will have a game by Tal with the black pieces in the Benoni defense. Now, in the Benoni, this is a hyper modern opening. Generally, the whole point is black wants to, after taking and play d6, black wants to have good development on this diagonal and consistently go for this queenside space. If black gets this queenside space, usually black is completely equalized. White's point is they're going to try to push their pawns in the center, put their knight on f3, try to kind of get black out of preparation and say this d pawn here is very bad because it's behind everything. It's just going to be weak permanently. And that's what happens after knight f3, g6, bishop e4, bishop g7, bishop e2, castles, rook e8. Black consistently shows, hey, this is a weak pawn, and white will try to defend it. Meanwhile, also stopping black from playing on the queen side, and that's what will happen. We get knight e2, white defends, but he prepares f4, knight to a6. Black offers white to take this pawn, this bishop, and then have this open activity on this side of the board. If white takes this, this is good for black. Black will have a very fun time, happy time, putting pressure on the center and having good activity on the side of the board. His opponent does not do that because his opponent is Gurgenidze, his strong grandmaster, rook e1. We get knight to c7. Tal achieves his rerouting of the pieces to put pressure on these pawns. a4 and b6. Now a4, this stops the move a6 from ever happening. If black was to play a6, white will immediately play a5 and stop black from playing b5 forever, because if b5 gets played, as you know, en passant, very forced move. And then next thing you know it, black is just completely lost. So black plays b6 to stop a5, maybe wants to play a5, b6 very slowly and continue their activity. Right after b6, white plays queen c2. And here, Tal notices a very, very important detail. Queen c2 is the first new move of the position. Tal notices that after queen c2, rook e1 is completely undefended. So he plays the move knight g4. Now, the whole idea of knight g4 is he realizes here that if the knight is on g4, he can maybe put his queen on h4 and attack this h3 pawn. White doesn't want to do that, so he forces him to go forward, to go back. He wants him to play knight to e5 and just let him play f4 and just keep attacking him. Oops, sorry. f4 and just keep attacking him after black goes back, and it's very bad. But then Tal shows you why he's one of the greatest attacking players that's ever lived. He plays the move knight takes f2, a brilliant sacrifice. This move immediately asks white questions. You have to take it, because if you don't, black's just gonna maybe take on h3 and then continue the attack with queen g5, bishop e5, and maybe even bring the rook into the game. It's not gonna be good. So white takes it. After queen to h4 check, which Tal plays, immediately white only has one move to defend. Because if he plays the move king g1, again, now you see this rook is actually hanging because queen c2 got played. If he moves forward, the rook is hanging. If he goes forward, the rook is hanging. If he plays g3, bishop d4 check just wins the game immediately, because after he moves the king, this queen comes in and you're going to get checkmate here very soon. So he plays the move king f1, the only move. Tal plays bishop d4, attacking the f2 square, threatening mate. Again, developing pieces and threatening mate. This is one thing that Tal is very good at. We get knight to c1, a very depressing move, stopping f2 mate and queen f2 mate, and just, that's the only way to defend it, so he plays it. Yet queen takes h3. Tal shows that immediately you cannot do anything. If you take this queen, bishop h3 is checkmate. Beautiful, beautiful. In this game, h3 has been the biggest problem for white's pieces. It's just a slow move and doesn't achieve anything. After queen takes h3, white of course does not take it because it would get mated. We get bishop f3, we get queen to h2. He wants to play queen to g1 and maybe swing his queen out to this side of the board and mate him after maybe playing f5, because if the queen goes in the center of the board, f5 would be really good. Here after knight d3, Tal plays f5 immediately. Now if he takes it, queen h1 or queen here will be very good, because if the king goes to the center of the board, this will only be bad for you. You can start sacrificing. You're actually just winning a knight here, and you're just winning completely. Anyway, white plays knight c4. We get takes on e4. Bishop takes on e4. and bishop a6. Now, immediately paralyzing this knight. This knight cannot move anymore because the bishop pins it to the king. And this also opens up the rooks to slide over to the king side and start attacking on the king. We get bishop f3, rook to e5. Tal wants to double up his rooks and put pressure on this knight because it's only defended 2 times and he's got 2 attacking pieces. If he puts one more attacking piece on it, he's going to win the knight. We get rook a3, defending it very interestingly, by the way. We get rook d8, defending it, bishop to d2. White doesn't really have any moves, does not know how to proceed forward. It's kind of hard to do anything here. I think the engine recommends sacrificing a pawn just straight away, which is very strange, but okay. Bishop d2, and we get the move knight takes d5. Because sacrificing a knight straight up. If you take with the bishop, we have rook takes d5, and if you take here, queen g1 will be checkmate. So you can never take with the knight, because queen g1 is mate, and the rooks cover this square. So we get, here we actually get bishop takes d5, rook takes d5, and the move king to e2, which just allows Tal to take, and then take on c4. And here his opponent resigns. Now, after rook takes and bishop takes c4, if he was to take with the bishop, for example, queen g2 is just checkmate, because this bishop is pinned, and you're covering all the squares around the king. If he takes with the rook, he can't take with the knight because the knight is pinned. If he takes with the rook after bishop takes g2, king moves out the way, and queen d2, you're getting checkmated as well, because the rook covers this beautiful d2 square. So after bishop c2, you'd have to play the very depressing move like king to d1, and after rook takes queen g1, rook here, you're just losing after queen f2 because there's no defenses against all these threats here. You can't take this bishop, and it's just over. And Tal wins a beautiful game where he sacrifices absolutely everything. Just a beautiful game. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This next one, I believe, is a game where Tal plays. This is one of my favorite games about Tal as well. This is a Ruy Lopez where Tal shows that he understands positional concepts better than just only playing tactical moves. Now, Tal was known for as a tactician. He would sacrifice pieces, really just show you why your moves are bad, right? But in this game, he just kind of slow plays it, brings his pieces to the game, and just really crushes the opponent, showing his knowledge of positional ideas. We get c3. We get the Ruy Lopez. This is a pretty theoretical line. Now, here actually, after h3, a lot of grandmasters nowadays play rook e8, and there's a really funny draw line here: knight g5, rook e8, knight f3, rook e8, and this is just a draw that a lot of grandmasters like to do back in the day. Now, to stop this, a lot of players would play h6 to stop knight g5 to be able to play rook e8, bishop f8. We get d4, rook e8, knight d2, bishop f8, knight to f1. This is all very common ideas in the Ruy Lopez. You want to bring your knight to the side of the board, and you want to continue putting pressure, play bishop b3, play queen d2, and just maybe eye the king side a little bit, and maybe put a knight on f5 is usually the idea of knight to f1. We get bishop d7, bishop g3, knight to a5, bishop c2. Of course, bishops are better than knights, and this knight is on the rim. Not good. We get c5, b3. Good positional move. This is theory. However, the whole point is if you take on this side of the board, you don't have knight c4. And if you were to play a move like knight c4 right away, b3 can be played, and knight to b6 is not really much of a problem because you can just play d4, a4, and black's pieces are kind of shut down. So we get c5, b3, g6, queen to e3. With this move g6, Tal sees that this pawn is weak. He's going to play bishop e3, queen d2, and continue putting pressure. We get knight to c6, d5, Tal closes the center. We get queen d2. The pawn is weak. Black defends it with the king. We get bishop takes c5. Now, this is the beautiful tactical move that Tal plays. Just showing exactly why this is all very, very bad for white. After bishop takes c5 takes and knight takes c5, black gets 2 pawns for a bishop. However, if you notice what the 2 pawns that he got for it is these 2 big center pawns. Now, if Tal was to trade off a lot of pieces in this game and push e5 and d6, this bishop will be dead for the continuous remainder of the game, and white will open up this light square bishop. If this white square bishop gets opened up, it's going to be really hard to play. On top of that, when Tal plays knight takes e5, he attacks an f7 pawn. So he always has the tempo. He's always got that consistent, moving forward, always just putting pressure, letting your opponent know that you've got all the moves and they don't. We get knight to c8, offering the pawn. Tal doesn't take it, because if you take the pawn, which is actually not the bad move, queen e7, you're forced to actually sacrifice here, queen and e5 right away, which is not so good. So Tal doesn't do that. He plays the move f4, keeping his center of the board very nice and locked. He doesn't want to get greedy and take a pawn. We get queen e7, we get c4, bishop g7, and knight f3. Now, Tal is still down a bishop, don't get me wrong, but this looks very menacing for the black pieces. You're just going to continue going forward, and you're going to open up this bishop, put a knight on h4, you're going to put pressure on this g6 pawn, and it's going to be very, very bad. We get b takes c4, b takes c4, knight to d6, and e5, forking the knights. We get knight c4, queen c3, and bishop b5. Now, my guess is after his opponent got to this situation, he probably thought that after e5, queen c3, that he would have to give up a piece here. But the thing is, after queen takes, and queen takes, and queen takes, this rook is attacked, and the pawns are split here. And actually, black is winning here due to the fact that the c pawn is so active. You can't really... you have the bishop pair, which is always good for the black pieces, and the c pawn is going to be continuing to go forward. But okay, that's not what happened. Bishop e5, we get the move rook d1 again. Tal showing exactly what he's showing exactly why he is very solid player. He does not need to show that he needs to beat everyone technically. He can just continue putting pressure, have a big center, and never have problems. We get rook e8, we get d6, knight takes, pawn takes, queen e7. Now, Tal has regained his material loss, and he's got a d pawn that's going to d7, and it's going to be really hard to defend that from promoting. We get knight e5, Tal putting a big knight in the center. We get knight d7, and then we get the move knight to h5. Again, because of this bishop opening up now, knight h5 shows exactly why this is all very bad. Just to refine, if he takes on here and f takes, this is completely losing because knight f6 will happen. I think even queen f3 can be played, rook f1 can be played. All very bad. Okay, we get bishop to h8, we get queen g3, knight takes, pawn takes, queen d7, and again, in this position, white just has too many big pawns in the center. These pawns are going to go forward. Black cannot move at all. Black has a bad bishop, a bad rook, and a bad queen. All the pieces are bad, and they cannot go forward. Meanwhile, these pawns are just going straight down the center of the board. We get knight to f4, bishop takes e5, Tal sacrifices the pawn as he usually does. We get bishop takes g6. Tal has to always win in great style, always sacrificing pieces. That's what he's known for, right? We get king to h8. If you take the piece, you're going to get mated shortly after rook takes e5 and queen f6, which you're going to take the rook and you're going to be up only a pawn, but the king is wide open, and knight g6 will be very strong. So his opponent does not take the bishop. We get king h8. We get bishop takes f7. Bishop check, and he sacrifices the rook. Again, he does not want to lose any tempos. He wants to continue going forward. After the rook trades and we get bishop takes f7, again, if he takes this piece, we have mate with knight g6, so he does not take it. And the game will end pretty quickly here due to the fact that after this rook f1, queen's looking at the king. If he takes here, queen g6 and rook f1 will be just mate. So he doesn't do that. After rook takes, black tries to trade off their pieces and say that, hey, even though I sacrificed my queen, we're still in equal material. Queen takes f7. If you take the pawn, again, knight g6, very strong move. Even queen e5 here just wins the game. So after we trade, we get queen takes f7, queen to e5 again, queen g7, queen takes c5. The pawn is still only 2 squares from queening. Tal completely winning. We get bishop to c6, and instead of taking the piece, hanging the rook in one move, Tal just defends with rook d2, and his opponent resigns. Well, because queen c7 is just a threat now, and this pawn is going to be promoted. Knight g6 is going to be a threat. You can even trade queens, and you're probably completely winning here. You're up 2 pawns. It's a very easy game. And so his opponent resigns because there's nothing much to do here. And we have the third and final game that we have. And oh, I left a real nice one for you guys. This is the famous Hippo game. if you are familiar with Tal at all, Tal, after this game, he actually explained that when he was playing the position, he was trying to find a way to sacrifice material and save the drowning hippo, as the the famous story. You see a hippo in the river and you try to save it from drowning. Here we have Tal's brilliancies, where he just has a completely strange position where technically black can try to defend. However, it's so hard to calculate, no one would find it. We get d5, we get d4, we get d takes e4, d takes e4. We get the Karpov variation, knight d7. Now, this is Vasiukov. He, as far as I remember, he's a pretty solid player. He doesn't play very attacking chess. He usually plays e5 against e4. He sometimes plays this. I think he's even played the French before. I don't think he's played the French, but some other lines. But anyway, he chooses the Karpov in this game. The Karpov variation is the Caro-Kann. We get knight f3, knight to f6, knight g3, e6, bishop d3, and c5. Now, this is the immediate way to try to solve your problems in the Karpov variation, is you want to get rid of the c-pawn. Because if black was to take here and take with the bishop after castles, b6 and bishop b7, black has two extremely active bishops. So you do not take there, generally. White just castles, he lets black take and takes with the knight. We get bishop to c5, black activates their bishop, we get knight f3, castles, queen e2, and here the best move would be to play b6, and that's exactly what he does. b6, we get bishop f4, bishop b7. Now, this is where chess is played. It's not about the openings for Tal. It's not about the openings for majority of players. If you're going to become a good player and a strong attacking player, you need to come from these positions where it could be completely equal or slightly better for yourself, and try to convert it into a way where you get complications, you get tactics, you get positions where you're asking your opponent questions and not getting questions asked yourself. And that's what Tal does. He plays the move rook d1, asking again. He's going to have ideas with trying to attack this queen if his knight moves. We get the move knight d5. We get bishop g5, attacking the queen. Again, he's not wasting any time. Queen c7. We get knight to h5. Now, this is the beautiful thing about Tal. If you notice something about his games, in the first game we showed, he put his knight in front of the king. In this game, you see that Tal likes to put his pieces in front of black's king. He likes to put his pieces in front of your king when he has time, because he knows that if you push forward or if you overextend, he's going to come in and it's going to attack you. He's going to start attacking. Now, in this game, we get king h8. Black senses some sort of danger, plays king h8. He's very terrified of this. And we get the move bishop to e4. Maybe he wants to trade off this bishop. This bishop is actually the biggest problem for the white position. If this bishop opens up, it's gonna be a lot of very scary ideas for black to play f5 and really come in there attacking on this g pawn. So we get f6, bishop to h4, bishop d6, attacking the h pawn. We get c4, attacking his knight, bishop to a6, and here Tal thinks for 40 minutes. Now, I want you to guess what the move here that Tal played is. There is a lot to think about here. A lot of players here would play bishop d3, just guard their pawn, be very solid. A lot of players would play b3, which is, I think, an accuracy because of knight, maybe knight f4, but they're all details. Here, Tal thinks for 40 minutes and plays the move knight takes g7. Ooh, sacrificing knight for absolutely no reason. It looks like there's no reason to do such a thing because you can just defend your pawn with bishop d3. However, he found a variation where after king takes, knight to e4, he realized he's the one asking questions here. This pawn is weak. Queen g4 is a major threat. This f pawn doesn't look particularly good. On top of that, he has queen g4 check, and after the king moves, he just takes the knight. So, black plays the move knight to c5, defending the pawn. We get the move queen g5 check. Again, now he's doing exactly what he thought would happen. Get king h8, and instead of taking the free knight, because this actually hangs the rook, he takes on e6 and takes with the queen. Now, again, the knight is hanging, but that's not the major issue here. The big issue here is this rook absolutely x-rays all of his pieces. If this knight was to move, he would take this bishop. If this knight was to move as well, this f-pawn would be hanging, and you would be getting mated, and you would lose this rook. So, after rook e8, he takes the knight. Black gives up the material again. But the problem is, in this situation, you notice something very interesting. Black is down 2 pawns. White is up 2 pawns. He's gotten a successful attack, and the king looks weaker than his. The problem is this h pawn is hanging. So after bishop takes h2, king h1, and queen f5, which I think is the final mistake of the game, Tal plays the move queen to h5, sacrificing this bishop completely. Because if he takes with the queen, this king will take the bishop and be completely fine. And if he takes with the rook, we have rook d7 attacking this pawn and just completely winning the game because you cannot defend this attack. Now, Tal obviously knew that if this was to happen, he wouldn't be able to defend it. If he plays queen f5, he loses the queen. Basically anything like that, like h6, queen g6 just edging towards the king, queen g7, queen h7 just wins the game, and it's all bad. So his opponent plays the only move he really sees, queen takes e4. Looks like a good move. Again, it loses the bishop on h2, which is what most players, I believe, would play. However, Tal, he plays the most accurate, most sharp move. He does not want to win slowly, having more pawns. He wants to win immediately. So he plays the move rook e1. And after queen g6, trades the queens. We get bishop takes f6. If you take the bishop, you get rook takes e8. King g8, rook takes e8, rook takes e8, queen takes e8, and we get this endgame. Now, the endgame is theoretically completely lost, because if you take on c4, knight, rook d7, and you're losing all the pieces. And that's what happens. Bishop takes c4, we get rook to d7, rook d6, bishop to c3, bishop takes a2, rook takes a7, and white is only up one pawn. However, this is the opposite color bishop endgame, so there's a lot of technique to try to find exactly how you're winning. This is the sort of endgame where if you are a strong player, you should be studying this sort of stuff. This is very, very hard to try to convert. Actually, I know for a fact a lot of players would get to this position and think this is just a draw. Why? Because it's an opposite color bishop endgame and white is only up one pawn. However, Tal doesn't stray away from being up a pawn and he continues the game. King g3, we get bishop d5. If everyone wanted to draw when it had an equal position, everyone would draw from the first few moves because chess is a draw. Bishop d5, f3, king f8, bishop to d4. Again, asking questions. He's going to put pressure on this pawn. We get b5, releasing the pressure of the pawn. We get king f4, activating this king. He wants to play with g4 and put pressure on this pawn instead. Bishop to c4. Now, the big advantage in this game in general for Tal is the fact that this rook completely cuts off this king. In order for black to probably try to draw this game, he would have to trade off this rook, and then he would be completely drawn. However, if you try to trade off this rook ever, move rook d7, bishop c5 completely equalizes. Like, for example, if you played rook d7, bishop c5 just not equalizes, sorry. Bishop c5 wins the rook, so he can never do that. So he uses the time, and we get bishop c4, we get king g5, again putting pressure on this pawn. King to e8, queen check. We get just a real quick, repetition. When you're low on time in a lot of these games, a lot of players would always repeat a couple of times to reach time control. In this case, that's exactly what happened. We get this position. Next move is move 40, so Tal checks again, and then we get move 40, and Tal gains his extra time to play out the rest of the game and maybe put pressure on the opponent. We get the move b4, just keeping this pawn in place. Maybe he wants to play bishop c4 and continue pushing his pawns. We get bishop to d5, we get rook to a3, king to f7, g4, rook to e2, bishop to c5, check, king goes up. Notice white activated their pieces and brought this king all the way to the side of the board, putting pressure on this g pawn. Now, if you notice something very interesting about this position, this f pawn is hanging. However, you cannot actually take it. If you take it, rook takes f3. Sorry. Yeah, rook takes f3. Yeah, you can't. So, we get to move rook to e6, rook to d3. If black was to play bishop to d4, I'm pretty sure rook d7 just looks completely winning. Even rook d8 strengths checkmate on f8. So, Tal, his opponent does not want to do that. He plays bishop to c6. Again, he wants to stop this move rook e8 by playing bishop to d8, or the more optimal approach, rook e8. If he trades, this is a complete draw. So we do not get that. We get to move bishop to c6, rook e8, rook e8, which this is actually what happened, and we get to move rook d4. Now, it's unclear whether or not Tal actually wanted to do this. he might have just played this move in spite because he saw the threat, and then decided after rook e8 that he had this move rook d4. It's kind of hard to do this, I'll be honest. Rook d4 is not easy to play. And he found the move f4. Now we get king e8, king g7. Again, moving the king into the position he's just slowly crushing here. Bishop e4, bishop to b6, possibly threatening some checkmating ideas. Bishop b4. If black was to play a wasteful move here, rook d8 check would be completely winning because of rook d1 or even rook b8 here. I think because bishop c4 wins the pawn. Okay, but in the game we get the move bishop to f3, attacking a pawn. We get check. Rook to d3, giving up the pawn. His opponent doesn't take it because if you take the pawn, you get bishop to d8 check, and the king has got almost no squares. After queen to e8, after king to e8 and bishop to g5, you're getting mated on d8. You have no squares, no moves that stop this move on rook d8 mate. You'd actually have to sacrifice the king, and you would lose the pawn, and this is just completely losing. So we get this move, bishop to e2, attacking the rook. We get check, king here, rook to d2, attacking the bishop. We get this, bishop g5. Again, he threatens this mate threat, and after bishop to d3, he plays the move f5, and his opponent resigns. Now, his opponent resigns here because after the move f5, he's going to push this f-pawn and it attacks this bishop. If he moves this rook, he's going to play f6, f7, f8, promote to a queen, and win the game. And Tal wins this game beautifully by, it's a really nice move, f5, attacking the rook behind the bishop and winning the game. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Anyway, that's a nice game on how Tal really gets into the deep tank and plays this beautiful move, knight takes g7. Brilliant move, just a brilliant move. Really coming after his opponent, saying, hey, I have all the moves that, I have all the moves that just continue going forward, and you have no moves that can defend very well. And after a bit, we see that Tal gets up and the clean pawn advantage and just wins the game very cleanly. And yeah, that was 3 games by Tal. Beautiful games. 2 of them quite positional. The third one kind of both. Very tactical and positional. Tal showing exactly why, even if he had a positional advantage, he will be able to convert them very cleanly. Anyway, that will be the end for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the next tournament. Goodbye.